The history of humanity is dotted with wars and abuses of all kinds, committed by nations and castes who out of lust for power have often unleashed hell and have invaded other countries, often with the endorsement of the United Nations. But today, the military and governments have made a leap in quality, enforcing a long-held desire to dominate natural phenomena and use this power as a weapon, as a means of control of other people and states. This new technology is revealed in our skies, known to many citizens as chemtrails. The term chemtrails is of military origin and contained in the Space Preservation Act, proposed in a law presented in 2001 by Congressman Dennis Kucinich. The U.S. parliamentarian called for the banning of all exotic weapons, including chemtrails. His law proposal was then passed with drastic cuts, and the reference to exotic weapons was removed. More precisely, we can now define chemtrails as clandestine geoengineering operations. This document, dating back to 1966, is overwhelming evidence which should be a strong alarm bell for all those who still deny the existence of massive weather and climate modifications, operations that are done by various governments all around the world. The material outlines their existence with a wealth of details of weather modification programs in the United States, plans referring to a decade prior to the drafting of this text. The text describes a special commission aimed at coordinating the multiple government agencies involved in disastrous geoengineering programs in the United States, together with independent collaborators and universities. The Commission intends to assess and manage international impacts, legal and social consequences, extinctions of living species, the biological consequences of clandestine geoengineering operations. In 1995, the U.S. Navy undertook an extensive study made up of dozens of documents in which they often described in detail the techniques to be used for the construction of a worldwide control grid made up of a series of tools. Between them, the study and manipulation of the ionosphere, the creation of layers that simulate the peculiar characteristics of aerosols, microwaves, the use of smart dust, the creation and destruction of mists and clouds, the stimulation of rainfall, the forced desertification of vast areas. The document is known as Owning the Weather in 2025, meaning dominating the weather by 2025. The study is sold as exclusively theoretical. From the examination of diagrams and images, it can be seen that as early as 1995, operations aimed at controlling weather and climate were in advanced stages of completion. In fact, our skies are opaque, have been striped and whitened since at least 1995. Are we really seeing trails of condensation? First of all, what is a trail? It is an area of liquid or gaseous fluid located immediately behind a moving solid relative to the fluid itself, characterized by the fact that in itself the motion is mainly formed by vortices. Condensation trails in English are called contrails. The term contrails is short for condensation trails. Their formation is linked to specific weather conditions of temperatures below -40, relative humidity of above 70%, altitude greater than 8,000 meters, at least, and suitable atmospheric pressure. Atmospheric pressure is a significant parameter. It changes in reference to the temperature. It decreases with the increasing thermal values because warm air tends to dilate, becoming less dense and lighter. It's natural that these parameters can undergo changes, but there's slight swings which derive primarily from latitude. For example, it's really unlikely for a contrail to form in regions like the equator, where the air is very hot all year round. Also, at high altitude, the air is very dry. For this reason, the contrails may occur very rarely. The plains that everyone can see with their own trail, more or less long, more or less persistent, fly at low or very low altitude, where it is impossible for the phenomenon of condensation to happen. This is a proven and irrefutable fact. Those non-persistent trails that we observe on days with the sky completely clear of clouds is a condition induced and artificially obtained through the diffusion of hygroscopic elements that prevent the formation and accumulation of good weather. They are not the result of condensation, but the result of the combustion of special fuel and additives. This determines the formation of false contrails and the relapse of polymers in the form of filaments and passed off as flying spider webs. The contrails, however, are a very rare phenomenon, so that in the old and emblazoned paper encyclopedias, the term condensation trail is absent. Turbofan engines with high bypass in use at least since the 1970s cannot produce contrails, since 80% of the air that passes through them does not enter the exhaust combustion chamber, so the unburned gases are relatively cold. This implies that current powertrains cannot in any way generate contrails. Fuels contain unsaturated hydrocarbons and are therefore subject to oxidization, which cause a worsening of the fuel made manifest by the formation of gums, color development, and lowering of octane numbers. The polymerization involves the formation of chains, hence the relap filaments. Radar signals are attenuated by oxygen and water vapor in the Earth's atmosphere. Attenuation becomes significant at frequencies higher than 10 gigahertz. Precipitation in the atmosphere in the form of rain, snow, and fog can significantly reduce radar signals, as well as contributing to background noise. So, what are the trails that smear the skies? The so-called chemtrails are an artificial phenomenon released by commercial and cargo, as well as from military aircraft. They contain numerous pollutants. First of all, the chemical elements of the additives used in the next generation aviation fuels. For example, barium, aluminum, and manganese. Chemical tests conducted in many countries have confirmed the presence of other elements and compounds: thorium and radioactive cesium, copper, titanium, cadmium, gallium, silicon, lithium, cobalt, lead, nickel, iron, and ethylene dibromide. A harmful insecticide officially banned by the United States Environmental Protection Agency, known as the EPA. Pathogens have also been traced: fungi, bacteria, and viruses. The presence of false contrails is undoubtedly related to the combustion of fuels and special additives such as Stadis 450, trimethyl aluminium, and the superfuel L-ice. We can't put forth the issue of relapse filaments, which have been inevitably sold for flying migratory spiderwebs. What's the composition of these filaments produced by the passage of the planes? In 2012, the filaments were analyzed by a French certified laboratory. The data has been interpreted. The results are described in this analytical report. Such airborne filaments are complex organic polymers based on synthetic chemicals, as shown by the analysis performed by the thermic breakdown of many products, including several molecules commonly found in fuels and lubricants for aircraft engines. The 4 samples studied contain several synthetic aromatic toxic compounds, and 3 of them include DEHP, a member of this product family particularly feared for its property of interfering with the endocrine system. All organic molecules, particular heterocyclic compounds present in samples of airborne filaments, are a source of concern, both in terms of public health and for the environmental impact. In recent years, planes that disperse chemical compounds often use substances that persist only for a few seconds, behaving like phantom condensation trails. These persistent trails are now used more rarely, mostly as sprayed substances which can be confused with the condensation trails, but are not. So, how to distinguish them? Very simple. The sky appears muffled and tends to maintain a semblance of pale blue, and very important, visibility is greatly reduced. A few hundred meters away, and especially in relation to the sun, you can see a dense haze. It's the relapsing chemical fog. In addition, apparently non-persistent condensation trails are the same altitudes of the cloud heaps. It's therefore clear that these are always chemtrails. The traffic in the sky is explained, considering it as an activity in which the interests at stake are multiple, both civil and strategic. The fundamental motivation is to transform the atmosphere into something that's suitable for radio communications. Think of the ever-increased diffusion of satellites, radars, GPS, wireless nets, and UMTS. Radar signals are attenuated by oxygen and water vapor in the Earth's atmosphere. Attenuation becomes significant for frequencies greater than 10 gigahertz. Precipitation in the atmosphere in the form of rain, snow, and fog can significantly reduce radar signals, as well as contributing to background noise. In general, the higher the radar frequency, the greater the attenuation. The attenuation rate, both in case of light rain and with dense fog, is about 0.1 decibels per kilometer for a 10 gigahertz radar signal. As a result, the signal will be reduced by 10 decibels after traveling 100 kilometers in a moderate rain or in a dense fog. We know that practices to stimulate precipitation are a fig leaf to hide illegal geoengineering. Inseminations to promote rainfall were a relatively widespread phenomena in the 1970s, especially in the United States, Israel, and in Italy. Often, this cloud seeding, which is still practiced today, but as a marginal activity, was done as a prelude to other interventions with very different, indeed opposite goals. It was therefore a Trojan horse to improperly introduce hygroscopic operations. The term hygroscopic comes from the Greek, and it literally means looking for, to catch humidity. Hygroscopic trails are based on drying compounds, trimethylaluminium, silicon gel, lithium, calcium carbonate, barium compounds, etc., which react with water present in the atmosphere. Through chemical reactions, the molecular bond between hydrogen and oxygen breaks, often significantly lowering the humidity of the air and thus preventing the formation of clouds. The result of chemical reactions, and also the release of other harmful compounds. Humidity and clouds, especially mounds, which are the rain tanks, found at low altitude, are enemies of radar and satellite systems that work on a particular frequency range. Natural clouds disturb and scatter electromagnetic signals. The phenomenon is called scattering. The military solved the problem by destroying the cloud formations. civil and military aircraft squadrons block or weaken disturbances with the spread of toxic and harmful compounds. Usually for these operations, the planes fly at low or very low altitude below the clouds. This happens because ascending currents then take the compounds toward the natural clouds, which are dissolved and replaced by a grayish coating. Hygroscopic trails are desiccant in nature, persistent and non-persistent, causing a greenhouse effect as they create a screen that blocks the infrared radiation associated to thermal energy, namely the heat coming from the ground. These trails, spreading and widening, veil sunlight by interfering with the photosynthesis and with the biological processes of all living beings. They are characterized by opaque, clogged skies, which cause droughts or disastrous rainstorms when the energy is concentrated in a limited area. Certain electromagnetic frequencies also split the bond between oxygen and hydrogen in the water molecule, so these radio emissions can be used to reduce humidity without having to use drying chemical compounds. Unfortunately, the upgrading of the radio communications, also related to the many conflicts creating bloodshed on the planet, goes hand in hand with environmental devastation and the rise of deadly diseases. Life and health have been sacrificed on the altar of economic and strategic interests. The interests at stake allow us to understand the objectives. The main purpose is to create an atmosphere suitable for military and civil needs in the field of radio communications. This goal is often associated with weather and climate control. That's why we talk about climate war. Owning the weather means dominating the economy and controlling resources. One can damage or destroy the enemy's crops, either causing prolonged droughts or torrential rains. Since the 1960s, the United States and Russia play with the climate and nature. The United States during the Vietnam War used Agent Orange to flood the slopes with abundant rainfall to hinder the Viet Cong. To prevent Chernobyl radiation from spreading into Russia, the Soviets dumped radioactive rainfall on the Ukraine using dedicated aircraft squads. Decades later, the Earth's climate is in a chaotic state and replete with artificial phenomena, leading to weakened, enhanced, or deflected phenomena. Decades later, the Earth's climate is in a chaotic state and replete with artificial phenomena, leading to weakened, enhanced, or deflected disturbances. Jet streams are diverted and temperatures subject to tremendous variability. The planet has been transformed into a theater of climate war, often with extreme events: hurricanes, formidable snowstorms, chronic lack of rain. Today, some countries such as China and Thailand have bodies responsible for weather modification. Unfortunately, those who play with fire risk getting burned. Thus, by preventing rain in a specific area on the occasion of a sporting or political event, means generating imbalances that result in flooding or other disasters. Clandestine geoengineering, born during the 1960s in the field of governmental or military strategic operations, soon became a source of astronomical profits for pharmaceutical, chemical, and in the agro-food companies, as well as for airlines. In the financial and business system of the planet, it is difficult to find companies that don't benefit immensely from illegal geoengineering activities. Let's follow the money trail. Agri-food companies are able to impose GMO seeds growing in drought-stricken regions or where soil is contaminated by aluminium. We can imagine what immense benefits can be obtained by speculating on the financial markets, in particular by purchasing and selling shares of agri-food and in chemical companies. While production undergoes sudden fluctuations, many in the stock market get unbelievably rich. Predicting and conditioning the performance of securities is a means to make exorbitant gains. Geoengineering is a giant cake whose value is astronomical. After Hurricane Katrina devastated Louisiana, millionaire contracts were awarded for rebuilding to companies linked to the entourage of Bush Jr. Chemical coatings and electromagnetic fields are dissolving the ice pack, thus enabling access to the underlying deposits. Russia, Norway, the United States can't wait to get their hands on the oil and on the natural gas reserves in the Arctic. With the climate change alibi attributed falsely to the carbon dioxide emissions in the atmosphere, new taxes are introduced which increase tax revenue. The carbon tax was invented to get money from companies and from citizens. Climate weapons are also these, a lucrative affair that guarantees exorbitant revenues to profiteers, usurers, airlines, multinational drug companies, research laboratories, war industries, university centers, and disinformers. So, besides military purposes, blinding enemy radars, electronic mapping of the territory with the dispersion of toxic barium, geoengineering turns out to be a suitable multi-purpose device for a variety of purposes and easy to use, thanks to the full involvement of civil companies. As scientist Edward Teller's case testifies, who suggested using civil aircraft to spread the nanoparticles of aluminium and glass into the atmosphere with the excuse of reducing global warming. The consequences on ecosystems of clandestine geoengineering are massive. The air we breathe, the water we drink, the soil on which we grow our plants is contaminated. Drought doesn't just destroy crops, but it also damages forests irreparably. Extreme climatic phenomena expose vegetation and fauna to great stress. Natural balances are mainly compromised. Torrential rains propagate the dispersion of bacteria such as Escherichia coli and the Pseudomonas syringae. They are pathogens that by their characteristics are given to act as condensation nuclei for precipitation, leading to a deadly effect, making the ground crumbly and destabilizing the soil, causing landslides. Earth's ecosystems are slowly giving way. Rhizobacterium, a useful microorganism, is becoming extinct due to the barium and the aluminum. This microorganism is responsible for the transfer of nutrients from the soil to the plant's root system. Barium and aluminum are alkaline and are changing the pH of the soil and the water, taking them to such high levels that plants can't survive. The death of bees is emblematic. These useful insects, largely responsible for the pollination of many fruit trees and other vegetable species, are victims of the high concentrations of neurotoxic metals in their habitat. Countless, however, are the animals and plants which risk rapid extinction, from bats to many wildlife species, from amphibians to hymenoptera, from chestnut trees to redwoods. In this way, parasites and harmful insects proliferate and carry diseases. Marine geoengineering, which mainly spreads iron, endangers the flora and the fauna of the oceans, already decimated by radioactive waste products produced by nuclear power plants. Cetaceans, often subject to indiscriminate hunting, are beached due to the emissions of very low electromagnetic frequency used for communication between submarines and between the submarines with ground bases. geoengineering pollution knows no boundaries, from the humus to the troposphere to the zonosphere. Biologist Michael Castle observed that Wells-backed particulate is harmful for humans and for the environment. This chemical mixture contains aluminium, thorium, zirconium, and other reflective materials, of which 2% consist of radioactive elements. Many regions in the world are suffering of what can be called thorium pollution. Thorium can only come from the spraying carried out in the stratosphere. In attempting to restore the ozone torn by nuclear radiation, selenium is used, as well as an aromatic hydrocarbon such as toluene, mixed with rhizomers such as xylene. These compounds, spread by planes, settle on the tropopause and on the ozone. Triatomic oxygen forms rapidly as a result of the spread of selenium and toluene, with the action of ultraviolet rays of the sun. This is the identical reaction producing ozone in the lower atmosphere, and it's problematic. The relapse of selenium and toluene is linked to overexposure to benzene. As is well known, benzene is a carcinogen. Selenium pollution is characteristic of exposure to metals, including lead. The consequences of clandestine geoengineering on all living beings are easy to imagine. In recent decades, neurodegenerative diseases, such as strokes and tumors, have increased massively. Many diseases depend on an increasingly polluted environment. The primary cause of this pollution is precisely geoengineering, at times being at the origin of bothersome disorders or even of serious illness. Metals, aluminum, barium, iron, strontium, manganese that accumulate in the body, especially in the brain, explain why Alzheimer's and Parkinson's are reaching epidemic levels. Not only that, the onset age of neurodegenerative diseases is lowering in an alarming way. Pollutants dispersed with aircraft, both civil and military, are added to the many substances harmful to health. Substances that are everywhere, in foods, in cosmetics, in automotive fuels, and in household cleaning products. Damage is added to damage. So people risk giving the coup de grâce to a population whose immune system is already challenged by an improper lifestyle, from stress to an unbalanced diet. The chapter on electrosmog must then be added. Electromagnetic fields acting in synergy with the electroconductive metals are related to a whole range of symptoms and diseases. Itching, rashes, allergies, sleep disorders, anxiety, migraine headaches, depressive syndromes, cramps, muscle pain, arrhythmias, blood pressure disorders, strokes, reduction in melatonin synthesis, alteration of the number of white blood cells, and spontaneous abortions. A blood test or hair mineralogram is sufficient to realize how many metals and in what industrial doses they are concentrated in the body. Clandestine geoengineering activities goes hand in hand with misinformation. Disinformation consists of spreading false and distorted news to hide the uncomfortable truth. It is the main tool used by the power to keep citizens under control, whose focus is diverted to irrelevant issues, on issues created on purpose. The most notorious case is that of the so-called greenhouse effect that would be caused by the carbon dioxide emissions into the atmosphere. In truth, global warming is a pretext to induce new taxes and to justify pseudo-environmental policies, always burdensome for the community. Between these policies, they have also devised the diffusion in the atmosphere of metals, sulfides, polymers, and glass nanoparticles. This should, according to official geoengineering proponents, limit overheating of the Earth, interposing a useful protective layer to reflect the sun's rays towards space. Catastrophic effects for life on Earth are not considered, and it's also not deliberately considered that the dispersion in the low atmosphere of metals and sulfides is the cause of an induced atmospheric effect. Since these chemical compounds trap infrared radiation from the Earth and prevent it from cooling. However, climate change from carbon dioxide is a big lie. It's given to the media to cover ongoing weather warfare operations, and it's been going on since at least the early 1960s. Disinformation coincides with the regime media that, without exception, ignore abusive geoengineering. When they mentioned it, it's just to relegate it to the realm of urban legends, to silence activists and worried citizens about being visionaries and about being paranoid. Visionaries and paranoid was the accusation given to the activists and the concerned citizens who denounced the health risks associated with industries that produced asbestos at Casale Monferrato. A few decades later, the judiciary recognized that there have been numerous deaths among both the workers and the inhabitants of Casale Monferrato due to exposure to asbestos microfibers. Exemplary sentences were handed down, although several offences have been statute barred. Illegal geoengineering is like asbestos pollution, multiplied by 10,000 and extended throughout most of the planet. Disinformation is a synonymous of guilty silence, of propaganda and fury. The most ardent are the so-called influencers, deniers and disinformers. They are recruited, trained and indoctrinated people to misinform, especially on the net. They are educated with special courses funded by the European Union and by some political parties. Their main purpose is to create confusion as soon as on the internet or elsewhere thorny topics are addressed, and they discredit independent researchers and awaken citizens. They often pose as experts by using the usual principle of authority. But if you read their articles and their comments, a true refutation is never found or replaced. Neither do they form a rational argument, but more often just denigrate and insult. They thus try to delegitimize their interlocutors, accusing them of all nefariousness by slandering them without fear of incurring in penalties of any kind, because they are protected by the institutions, in collusion with the disinformation industry. Key in this field is the role of some committees, who are among the intellectual partners and prestigious scientists, all engaged in constant propaganda in favor of the system. Like other influencers, these specialists, rather than to deny the facts and the arguments of the counterparty, they rather use rapid considerations, and above all, they express themselves with irony and with the attitudes of hubris and arrogance. As soon as you scratch a bit, you find that they always have interests and privileges in the pharmaceutical industry, in biotechnologies, nanotechnologies, environmental remediation, the chemical industry, telecommunications, and in the warfare industries. Above all, they gravitate to the university world with its baronies, its intertwining production reality. It's all around of collaborations, of contracts with public and private companies, even with self-styled environmental associations whose leaders are at the forefront of denialism. Effective sounding board for organized disinformation is the regime media complex. The misinformers are coordinated by powerful state apparatus. These entities subsidize viral campaigns to credit the official versions on television networks, as well as promote the dissemination of false news to support the establishment. What are the scenarios coming up? What can we do? We must first understand that countering clandestine geoengineering means worrying about the future generations, about our children. Action must be taken. If we won't be able to stop the operations, we could only expect extreme weather events. With all the ensuing damage, we can just expect an exponential increase in disease. It is illusory to trust institutions excessively that are inefficient, as demonstrated by countless examples. Think of the inertia of the judiciary and local authorities facing landfills in Campania, where for decades they buried toxic and radioactive waste without anyone moving a finger. For decades, industrial waste was buried there. Slag is filtered into the aquifers and into the soil, poisoning everything. So today, in Campania, especially in the provinces of Naples and in Caserta, are the top places in epidemiological statistics with regard to cancer. Is there still time to reverse the trend? We have to involve biologists, doctors, chemists, serious environmentalists, honest managers, asking them all to work through their knowledge and their skills. It's time to sensitize as many people as possible, starting from our neighbors, our families, and our friends. Let's not forget that not only our health is at stake, but that colossal resources are taken from the community, because illegal geoengineering costs in Italy alone not less than 20 million euros per day. These are funds defrauded from workers, people on redundancy pay, retired people, and the unemployed, all the weaker categories. Today, more than ever, they are crushed by relentless tax authorities. It's necessary to speak up about the issue, but also offer answers and resolutions. It's an opportunity to regain that freedom and that dignity that governments want to rip away from us. US researcher Dan Wington asserts, jet engines do not produce contrails. Except in very rare conditions, and in any case, the planes that eventually generate a brief contrail are too high to be seen from the ground. In fact, most people will never see a condensation trail in their whole life. Many sky watchers and airline pilots have decided to express their outrage for the sensational misinformation with which clandestine geoengineering is concealed. This documentary is dedicated to our parents, Pasquale and Rita, who have always encouraged us to continue the research for truth, whatever it may take. Particular thanks goes to all the activists who contributed to the production of this documentary. Below are some of the researchers and scientists all over the world who deal with illegal geoengineering, also known as chemtrails.
Oh, yeah. Sure, later, huh? Right, later. Okay, this is a real lot. I guess something to say. I want to know how come the fascist pigs have been seeding the clouds.
Right.
Last hour and a half. Airplanes going over twice with all the smoke coming out of them, seeding the clouds. And I want to know, why that stuff is going down, man. And why doesn't the media report that stuff to the people, man? I'm telling you what happened. The planes come over for an hour and a half and they seeded all the clouds, Don. People of unknown origin were seeding the clouds over the. I don't know what they're creating rain for.